Friends, family, and keepers of the faith, welcome to another Del Boy blog. And as ever, I'm going to date stamp this. It's year 5, blog 14, or in legacy numbers, it's blog number 222. Wow, what's that? In bingo numbers, 22 is two little ducks. 222 won't have a bingo number, but all the twos anyway. And it's dated 24th of the 5th, 2026. And it's been an average week. I don't use that word very often either. Average. Good, bad, challenging, average. So, you know, nothing really bad, nothing fantastically good. You know, little wins. That's how I look at it. And average is... and greater is what I aim for. So I looked at my blog a little bit. There's nothing really that I want to shake up, and I've mentioned before about doing something different with my blog because it's really a diary. I don't like really that word blog because I'm not going out blogging anything. It's a diary. It's my thoughts. But I always think that the news could be shortened. It's only a date stamp. I keep mentioning that. So I'm going to start off with the news and try and just go through it as quickly as possible. It doesn't need to be expanded. So what's happened this week? Well, Chancellor Rachel Reeves has announced temporary value-added tax cut, that's VAT, to tourist venues and summer attractions. No opinion on that. Doesn't help. I don't think it really helps tourists or people that are going to Alton Towers, theme parks, going to our beaches, that sort of thing. Doesn't help with the daily shop, fuel, none of that. Other mentions were there was a long-term net migration to the UK fell by 48% in 2025. What can I say about that? Migration was a big thing for politicians for years and years and years. It fell 48%, but we still see all of the news articles on boats coming across. But I take it that's for standard net migration. UK recorded its highest May temperature since 2012 with a 30.5 degrees centigrade recording in Kent, with many UK locations on amber alert. Yeah, we're not in a heat wave. My God, the week started off so overcast and wet, but it warmed up, like they said, and today's a lovely hot day for many. To others, it's oh bloody hell too hot, but we're a moaning lot, so what can we say? And then all grouped together in the sport, Aston Villa won the Europa Cup. Southampton were disqualified from the Championship playoffs, where Coventry and Ipswich ultimately go up. There were teams below that for the third placing, which would mean promotion into the Premiership. Southampton were caught what they called cheating. There was recordings of training matches going on, for which the FIA disqualified Southampton, and so the team that they beat, Middlesbrough, went into the final that was played, and it made no difference. Hull went up. They beat Middlesbrough 1-0 in the, I think, 88th minute or something, 84th minute. There's 90 minutes to a football game, so you can imagine with extra time it was quite there was a time extension through stoppages and so forth. Went over 100 minutes, by the way, where it was quite tense. Middlesbrough tried, didn't get anywhere. So Hull won, and commiserations to Middlesbrough that had very little training time. I think they relegated themselves to have lost. They had another chance and they didn't capitalise on it. That's the news, other than there was a death that quite meant something to me, to a star, an actor, Michael Keating. That's not Keaton, Keating. He was 79. Suffered from ill health, dementia, mostly in his final days. I always remember him fondly from Blake 7, where he played Avon. Avon was actually one of my favourite characters in the production of Blake 7. He was the sort of like locksmith thief character, but I looked at him as the comic relief, because I always laughed because he was very timid, a coward, some might say, but he stood up to the plate on occasions. It was a fun character, I was sure, for him to play. He didn't really play. He played an awful lot, but I didn't recognise him in a lot of things that he did. My sister reminded me that he was in EastEnders. Don't watch the show, you see. I recognise him in Doctor Who. He played in The Sunmakers. That's a Tom Baker episode. I think it was something like in his third or fourth year, Tom Baker playing that role. And he was in Micromen, which is a little TV dramatization production that I remember fondly, because it was talking about my 8-bit days. This was between the fight between Sinclair and Acorn, really. And he played Derek Holly. He was the finance director of Spectrum Radionics. I think that's what they called themselves before they turned into Sinclair Research. Small part, but I recognised him in that production. So the death of Michael Keating, yeah, a sad thing. It just makes my sort of like boyhood just diminish even more. So many actors dying. So, got the news out the way. 7 minutes I'm looking at here. That's pretty good, isn't it? Don't need any more than that, do we? So we can get on to my week. And as I said, it's been an average week. I've been trying to sort out my back, doing different things. I've followed the exercises, done my walk round the block. I wanted to extend it, but it's been a bit of a challenging time with the changes that we have to do every day with my mother. We do it 3 times a day. There's the rolling towards me, rolling away from me, pulling cloth up, that's her pajamas and her tops. And it's been a lot of standing, and I'm not ambidextrous, and I generally, my position in helping is me moving left to right, and I'm right-handed. So, pulling and so forth means that I'm pulling on my back quite a bit. I haven't made a big thing about it. I never would. It's helping my mother. So, of course, you just do it. And then, of course, before my sister turns up and after she leaves, I do jobs around the house, hoovering, that sort of thing, cleaning, and anything that I have to bend down to do is generally quite hard. But you also have to recognise that you have to go beyond the norm. You need to push yourself, spiral, do twists, stuff like that, because some of the problem could be a trapped nerve. I feel mostly that it's the spaces between the vertebrae that are just about degrading now. Other health conditions that I have that I haven't really mentioned the names of in my diary could be having an effect. They're things that I'm not ready to talk about too much, but they will be talked about. And they're challenges. That's all they are. They're challenges. So really, you'll see me moving about a bit. That's me trying to get comfortable. That'll happen all the way through this. I apologize for it, but there's not an awful lot I can do. I have to keep trying to find a comfortable position. Sometimes I put my arm up like this. You'll see an awful lot. In fact, actually, that was brought to my attention today. I was in a stream, and it's brought to my attention, you know, in a fun way, some of the times that I mention something and I'll say, you know what I mean, an awful lot. And there's that that you'll hear quite a bit. That's me not engaging my brain, not staying silent and thinking of the next thing to say. They're just things that occur, and sometimes I look at them and they're quite fun, really. I'll have to think about that, you know what I mean, because it's a sort of like famous saying Frank Bruno, the boxer, used to bring up in the 80s and 90s. He was famous for that and using the name Harry at the end, because there was a famous boxing commentator called Harry Carpenter, who I really, really liked. When I was watching boxing, he did a commentary for all the great battles. He did the Muhammad Ali ones, and I'll come across that in a bit about Muhammad Ali. Comes up towards the end of this, but yeah, I'm silly and say things an awful lot, but I try not to. So I haven't been at work, but I did have a conversation with work on Wednesday. We've agreed to have another one this Wednesday. We talked a little bit about phased return, a document to say what caused my problem, which everybody knows is my mother fell on me and ripped my back slightly. I say slightly, but I've been off work now for a while, and it's something that I'm itching really to go back to work on. I don't like this time off, but I can't sit down for long enough. So we talked a little bit about the changes to how we care for my mother, possible changes that would be needed for work in regards to that. I've relieved them a little bit on that by telling them that there isn't that much to change, because we timed the morning, which is about 25 to 35 minutes. And we timed the daily ones, the ones that are done in the middle of the day and just before my sister goes. And those are shorter at 10, 15 minutes, with maybe the last one taking a little while longer, because you got to remember that my mother, therefore, will not be changed again until the following morning. So you want to make sure she's totally fresh. And the morning one can be a challenge, because not every Monday would we mightly say change the sheets. That could happen because of an accident that happens midweek. So it's difficult, but I wouldn't say that it would take any longer than 40 minutes. But we have to remember that while I'm off work, I'm doing the breakfast and giving my mum her medication and preparing for my sister to turn up. And so those things would be added on to that. But what used to happen with the changing of my mother and getting her all prepared was it took about an hour. And that's why I started earlier. So some of those things are going to be taken over by my sister. And so therefore I don't see those changes being a problem. And anything after 4 o'clock is not a problem, because that's when I finish work. And the last thing that we do during the day is after 4 o'clock. So really there's only the middle one. And as I said, it took 10, 15 minutes. But that's at a time where I have my lunch. And in my lunch, I used to go for a walk and do the shopping. Well, we have to remember here, the shopping part is done as we need things like bread, butter, all of that sort of stuff. And when the walk and that bit of shopping usually took the full hour. So if you add 10 or 15 minutes, that means that I'm eating into work time. But you also have to remember that you are allowed a break to get yourself a cup of coffee, all of that sort of stuff. So if I combine those things together, they'll equal that time that I need to do that particular function to help with my mum. So I don't see any problems with work. I still feel I can do the full 8 hours. It will mean starting early, getting that hour in for when I'm going away and helping my sister, because she'll turn up at 8:30. So it's just a little bit of give and take from work's point of view. So that's the work bit really out the way. I had a little meeting and I've got one on Wednesday. It was done by a team talk, which meant I got my laptop out, and we talked about the things that I could do on the phased return, and most of it I thought would be catching up and doing some training, getting caught up with that so that I'm on a level playing field with my colleagues. I learned a little bit about the work gossip. One manager that I was under has left. So, you know, there's a few things that I've got to catch up, and some things that have been brought to me as a surprise. So there was that. And then there's my mum. So when it comes to my mum, nothing really drastic to report. My sister's been excellent and done all that we can to clean my mother, and I've been doing the same. She says that I'm doing well with that. We both get despondent when my mother won't wake up to be fed. It's not very good when you're a carer with what they call assisted eating duties, where you're spooning food into your mother's mouth and her eyes are closed. She's just fed up and not wanting to wake up. And I can understand it. If you're in bed all that time, you just get fed up. What can I do today? Oh, nothing. I'll wake up and watch telly again or read a paper again. It's not good. We've tried to do the leg exercises again while in bed. She's not resistant to it, but she not really caring to do it either. There was a slight challenge this week in the regards to the fact that my mother got a haircut and got her hair coloured, washed, all of those sort of things. A very expensive thing, 200 quid, to have a mobile hairdresser turn up and do all of that work. But you got to remember, my mother's got to get out of bed for that. So that means using the machine to get her out, putting her in a wheelchair. So the wheelchair had to be brought down. The wheel commode that we got wasn't good enough for the task because the back of the chair was too high and you couldn't take the back off. And if you took the back off, there'd be no support. So that was a no-go. And it's time for the garden. So I went to the garden centre and paid quite a bit of money for flowers, begonias, fuchsias, dahlias, all that sort of stuff. So where my sister paid for the hairdressing side of things, where I said I would chip in, and I will when I'm paid, because we're not at the end of the month yet. I paid over £100 for plants, and she said you don't need to, because that's good enough. It's not something that I don't own this house, so all that money came from me, and I'm sure my mother would be grateful, and she would have paid in the past for those flowers, so that's my contribution. So I don't need to put money in for the hair, which is a really nice thing to say from my sister, so that's good. We've had less conversations this week that we've, where in previous weeks we're getting quite close with talking about stuff, and that's sad. But I suppose anybody can get a bit despondent when your mother's not reacting the way you want her to, and it's down to us to talk, but we get on really well. It's nothing like back in September last year. Nothing like it. Even at Christmas, it's nothing like that. So it's concentration. And, I mentioned things that could improve things. She mentioned things that could improve things. And it's whether they're actioned upon on whether I get despondent with, I might mention, check the tumble dryer, that'll help me out or something. So those sort of things, if they're actioned upon, make me smile. And if they're not, I think, well, why? But you got to remember that I don't know quite what goes on all the time, and it might be that she's busy doing other things, and anybody can forget. So nothing to report. It's really a nothing week. I haven't had anything that's dragged me down, YouTube wise, work wise, home wise. Only my health, really, which I wish was a little bit better. So we've got rid of that section, and we've done that in under 20 minutes. Because of my back, I've got to stand up and stuff. So I'll be back in a millisecond for you. So I just checked on my sister and my mum, and checked on the washing machine, and my sister had already done that. So big thumbs up to my sister. And we were talking a little bit about what I'd just been talking about, the news, and we were talking about how it's amazing how back in our day cancer really wasn't mentioned too much, but now it's in our language, and stats and all that sort of stuff altered about immigration and other big what some people consider to be news stories, and what we consider to be big. And I was mentioning to my sister that when I put in the news this morning, what she considered the big news wasn't mentioned, and that sort of thing. And it's quite true. I'm glad my news section is just a short section at the beginning, and these are the sort of like little conversations that we have. She was amazed a little bit about how long I've been taking, say, hypertension tablets for. I've been taking those since I was in my 20s. And then we talked about which side of the family have died from this, and it's a bit morbid, really, when you think about it. But the conversations that you sort of like need to have, because that came up because of the way Michael Keating died at 79. But it mentions in the news that he'd had long-term dementia issues, and of course that's something that we talk about quite a lot because of my mum's vascular dementia. So it starts bringing up all of that sort of stuff in conversations, and sometimes I love to talk about those things, and other times I find it really depressing and want to get away from it because I'm trying to be a buoyant person. But she's quite right, sometimes you just got to have those hard discussions. So have them with your family. You need to. There we go. But we get to, anyway, the shout-outs. And what can I say about the shout-outs other than what I always say, which is thanks everybody that watches. Thank you a hell of a lot to the people that have left a comment. My God, they make my day when I'm reading them out. They're asking about how I am, all of that sort of stuff. I think a lot of people know that I put my heart on my chest a little bit, on my arm, they used to say, put your heart on your arm, and give out information about how I'm feeling and all of that sort of stuff, it can be considered a weakness. I look at it as, if you don't talk about it, then people don't know about it. And if they don't know about it, how can they help? That sort of thing. So I don't look at those things as weakness. Maybe that's the reason why I haven't progressed probably so fast, I would say, in my career, because I've told people, oh, this is hard for me or whatever, and it's looked upon as a weakness, and it can be exploited. So yeah, I get it. It's happened with people that I've considered friends and actually they weren't, and all of that sort of stuff. But I think we've all had that. I look at some of the past friends I've gotten. They're only past friends because I haven't spoken to them in a long time, but they're still friends as far as I'm concerned. I don't think they'd want me dead, tell you like that. So there you go. Anyway, the people that have left a comment, I'll read those out, are Denny, Down the Rabbit Hole, Ian Hill, The Ramblings, Martroid, Colin Jones, aka Ponder, Roberts Retro Gaming, Wee Bob Art, Jambon, Stephen Taylor. And every single one that hasn't even left a comment, thank you. That's all I can say. And it leads into the comments, and they're not in any particular order, so I'm going to read them out now. So the first one is from Down the Rabbit Hole, my friend who I talk about later on with his channel in Canada. And he's put, you and I have a lot in common, Del. I love pocket watches and waistcoats as well. Yeah, I happened to mention that last week. Always come up with something different or unique to talk about that might tell you a little bit about who I am, what I like, what I dislike, and so forth. Question for you. So very quick with a question. Forza Horizon 6 has just been released and it's set in Japan. Yeah, have you noticed that? Forza's always set in something. I noticed a gaming podcast said it doesn't feel very Japanese, and yet a Japanese YouTuber I watch said it definitely does. Have you encountered a game that is set in Britain that didn't feel very British? For example, did you play Atomfall? Which is an interesting comment because I did a series on Atomfall. I didn't get very far with it because things happened in my life with my mum. But I played Atomfall, and at that particular time, I happened to mention that it felt more like an Avengers, the TV series from the 60s. It felt more like an episode of that. It was like what if this happened in Britain at this particular time? And it is about a plant or a laboratory that was happening, and then all of the government get involved and the army are brought in and all of this sort of stuff, and you see the wilderness and you see the countryside, and I look at it and I go, yeah, bits of Britain are a bit like that. I never really thought of it as being a true demonstration of Britain now. Do you see what I mean? It's a make-believe story. You know, if you ever were to do an adaptation of Day of the Triffids and all of those, back in the day, they did what it was like and what the book was supposed to denote and what it's like now, and they do the middle ground all the time. Never saw half the things that they saw in those films and TV adaptations. So I would have to turn around and say Forza Horizon 4, which was set in Britain, does not feel like Britain. It's the British map isn't even the same. You go across counties and they look similar. You go along the beach and you go, that's not how I remember that part of the beach to look like. I think it's just supposed to have the taste of Britain. And I suppose that goes along with one of the other games I'm going to mention. There's an Assassin's Creed, episode set in Britain. There's so many now. I think it's called Syndicate. Not sure. It's set in Victorian times. Now, I've seen pictures of Victorian time Britain. I've seen lots of history productions of how it was supposed to look that are generated based on pictures. But what I know about Victorian Britain was London was a very close thing and streets were not very wide. You go into Assassin's Creed, my God, the streets are wide. So that's not really a great adaptation, is it, either? But you have to make these concessions in games because of things that are going on in the NPCs of those games. You know, say there's a horse and carriage or something. So there's another one. I don't think really anything else really comes to mind. A lot of our 8-bit games were all based on fantasy, like Everyone's a Wally and all of that sort of stuff. And houses didn't look like that, and they were never intended to be. I take it as well that there isn't huge mansions like there are in Attic Attack or Underworld. So, you know, they're never intended to be British. They're just done by British developers. So, is there anything else? No, I really can't think of one. That's a really good question, you know. But Forza Horizon 4, I think you'd agree with Assassin's Creed possibly as well, because I know you're a big Assassin's Creed player. I don't know how many you've played. I think the last one you talked about was set on sailing boat. I think that's called Black Flag. And of course, they've gone back to the Egyptian stuff based on one of your videos. So if you haven't guessed already, Down the Rabbit Hole is one that I mentioned in my YouTube Watched. And he's got a channel, and so is his sister, about the footnotes. I can't quite remember what the full title, Beyond the Footnotes, something like that. But you'll get the channel name from just going to one of his videos. And I've always recommended you watch his videos anyway. So hopefully that's given you an answer. And thank you so much for commenting. You have commented in the past, and it's just great that you found the time to do one this week. Absolutely marvellous. Salute, my friend. The next one that I'm reading is from Stephen Taylor. And I've seen him comment before as well, not very heavily, but great that he does. And it's nice that he knows that I know that he's watching us. But hi, Del. I enjoyed watching your video diary, as always. I'm full of admiration for the wonderful job you're doing caring for your mum, despite your own health issues. I wanted to know your thoughts about having to work from home. Do you miss the day-to-day interactions with your work colleagues, or do you prefer working alone? You also save time and money by not having to drive there, of course. Have a good week. Best wishes, Stephen. And what a great question. Nobody's actually asked me that before. There are pros and cons, isn't there, from working from home? During COVID, where a lot of people were working from home, I had to go to work, but it was a lonely experience because on one thing, it was great that I had the roads to myself because nobody was allowed to drive either unless they had a specific letter, which I did, that said for the reason I was on the roads. But also, when they were working from home, people had found it quite difficult. They liked the interaction. I have to say that I was the only tech manager of Thames Valley, so I didn't really work with anybody. But I did work with a team, and I did go to London, and I met that team, and they came to see me to help out on occasions. And collaboration was brilliant. But what I liked was the ownership, the feeling of helping by doing these things. And I had to come up with these solutions by myself on a lot of times. And the quietness made me concentrate more on those things. But there have been plenty of times all through my life I've worked by going to an office, doing a 9 to 5. I say that as a saying, but I actually worked at different times, going in at 7, finishing at 6. All of these because I was doing like shift work or that sort of stuff. But you get the gist. I worked on Saturdays and Sundays, and I did night stuff as well. So I've had plenty of variety. But in those times, I had to be at a place. And when I had to work from home legit, it was when I moved over to the Ministry of Justice, to be quite honest. And it was jarring. Yeah, very jarring. I went in at the beginning 5 times a week. My colleagues were going in once, twice. They felt there was no need. I felt I needed to have the normality of going into work until the point where I couldn't. You can't leave your mum alone. Your sister comes in and she needs to help, and she can only be here for a set amount of time. That's when working from home has been a godsend. But think about it. You're using your own electricity. You have a less responsibility with the fuel, so that helps with that, etc., etc. It made certain times my wages buoyant, and other times it didn't, because something would happen at home that needed to be fixed and I had to pay, and my mother had to pay. You know, it was a joint thing. You know, it's so my thoughts on it. I think it works for a lot of people. I don't think it works for others. I think I miss going into work, but I know it's an impossibility now at the moment. But maybe that will probably change. You know, there's going to be a situation that will change with my mum, which I don't want to talk about, that would mean that problem has gone away. And work have a policy where you have to go into work twice a week. So that will change. And maybe I'll look at that as being jarring again to go back to that, because I've now gotten so used to doing this. But I have to admit, my job doesn't require me to go into server rooms anymore or crawl under desks to do cable tidying or change a network cable or any of that sort of stuff. That all that's in my past, all gone. Building laptops has gone, all of that. And I love that stuff, and the stuff that I do now I enjoy much less. But what keeps me going is the need of it. It needs to be done. They're relying on me to do it. So there is that. So there you go. Hope that's a good enough answer for you, Stephen. Thank you very much. I don't think you've got a YouTube channel, so I can't promote that. But I wish you very well, and thank you very much for commenting. That's really good of you. So I'm going to have a little bit of water, because I've just recognised who the next one is, and it's War and Peace. Yes, it's my friend Denny. And it's so glad to have him back. I know it won't be for every week, but it's nice and it's great, and it puts me back into that. Oh, we're back to normal again. But there is no normal, is there, anymore? So he's put, hiya, mate. Blimey, isn't it warm? Absolutely baking at work. Saying that, it's nice to have a bit of sunshine, brighten up the mood. Yeah, we were all talking about that, weren't we? About how winter makes you miserable and how a bit of sun brings that. And of course, it helps you with some vitamin deficiencies. Remember that sunshine boosts that in our blood systems. Hope the sunshine has been a little pick-me-up for you and your mother. I think it has. Probably not for my mother. She doesn't recognise it. But we recognise that the heat is so much that we now haven't got the duvet cover. We've moved that away. She's now open. We've been doing that since today, by the way. And it's nice. You know, we can see the whole body of my mum rather than just her head and top and her hands, which are covered by the duvet cover. So there you go. So not much has happened since my epic last week. Only thing I will say, I've completely gone through all the channels that I've subscribed to on YouTube and cut the majority of these constantly asking for money. Yeah, isn't that a thing on YouTube? Patreon and all of this sort of stuff. I totally get that. I need to probably go through my list for different reasons, just because a lot of the stuff that's there I just don't go to anymore. He carries on. I'm literally, so specifically, sick to the back teeth of it now. This is the money in YouTube. You do it for the passion and interest in your hobby. Why do you want money? I still can't get my head around it. Yeah, some people making a business out of it, mate, but that's not me and a lot of our friends. I've noticed over the last year the big retro channels output has slowed, the quality reducing. It's becoming plainly obvious. There are so many smaller tubers out there. Their videos are absolutely fantastic, like everyone on your Discord. So much variety to enjoy and watch, and I have to agree with that. I've tended to not watch the big ones. There are a couple, LGR and This Week in Retro. They're the bigger ones, and they've grown from small icons to where they are, but they then do we're sponsored by Kex, or we're sponsored by PCB Way, or thanks to my Patreon members that give me money for my content, etc., etc. And I watch those less and less. I do like the professionalism in them, and I do like the fact that they now have to be that way because of the money aspect of it. If I was ever at 1,000+ subscribers where you can monetize it, I don't think I would. My friend Ian Hill, The Ramblings, hasn't monetized. He does it for the passion. That's the type of person that I swarm to. Do you see what I mean? So there is that. Such a shame at the loss of Michael Keating, you continue, from Blake 7. The only one to appear in every episode. A fantastic actor and person in real life. Hopefully he did something for the new Blake 7 boxes, but the chances are slim, seeing as he's been ill for a while. And I did mention about the dementia a couple of times now, and some of the roles that he did outside of Blake 7. But to me, he'll be synonymous with Blake 7. It's just the way it is. Another from our pastel, Judith Chalmers, Mrs. Holiday Abroad. Another gone from our past. Yeah, wish you were here. Remember those at 7 o'clock on an ITV network? It's just another part of our childhood going. I should have put that in my RIPs. I didn't. Apologise. Glad you mentioned it. Means I brought it up. But I think a lot of the people that were born around my time, late 60s, early 70s, are going to remember things like Judith Chalmers. Like they'll remember David Bellamy or, Michael Bentine. Names that won't mean much to my American or Canadian friends that might spur them to do a little bit of a Google search. But there you go. This week I picked up a film, Food of the Gods. Never realised it was based on the 1904 novel H.G. Wells. Another thing that passed me by was that it was produced by Samuel Z. Arkoff. Now there's a name that you see a lot in films. The same person who produced At the Earth's Core and the other Doug McClure films, Meteor and Panic in the Year Zero. Yeah, and you'll know that I've mentioned the film Meteor and that damned Orpheus, a huge meteor that was coming towards Earth that had Sean Connery and Carl Malden. Can't forget him. Well worth a look, I think, for this Food of the Gods, and I think I've seen it, matey, and I do know of the book. I do know it was a H.G. Wells book. There's a number of books he wrote in the late turn of the century, War of the Worlds, and all of that sort of stuff. But I do know that he did some fringe other stuff because he was writing stuff for the newspapers as well, and he put short stories and things in there. A very community person, and literate is the word. Anyway, you've put, so a question for this week. Planet of the Apes is being rebooted again. What's your feelings on this? Wow. I didn't know. And I thought that the last film was the start of a three-parter. Now, I took it that was the reboot, but yes, you're talking about the fact that they might have disregarded that, rebooted it again. I've looked at it like any reboot, TV or film. It can be a good thing. It can be the most disastrous thing in the world. And what we have to look at here is, does it require another reboot? What, when you reboot it, are you rebooting for? From that point of view, I don't get it with Planet of the Apes. Do you need to go to another character other than Caesar and do something? Or can you continue with still telling tales of the fringe characters that are in there without doing a reboot? Planet of the Apes, to me, doesn't require one. It had its reboot. It was done, dusted. I liked it. I don't see another one. Just don't see it. And that goes for a number of things that I mean, they did this thing on the BBC, and it's quite uncanny, really, because it's history repeating itself. They had a show called The Six Faces of Ronnie Barker, or whatever it was. He did individual stories, and the background behind it was not only to entertain, and you got these 6 individual half-hour comedy gold genius stuff, but they turned the ones that were the most highly rated or audience figures into actual other shows. And then they did those shows, and then because Ronnie Barker died, or for whatever reason, they did a homage to these shows, 6 of them, to be quite honest, like Are You Being Served and that. And then they took some of those and turned them into shows again, so it's a reboot. And they did this with Porridge, I remember. And it didn't feel right. But I was of a certain age where I'm looking at it from the old style, and this was for a new audience. But I saw that it was written by the same people that wrote the original one, which is a good sign. And I saw the old jokes coming in, and I even saw some of the jokes that were previously in those stories done in a totally different way. And that's the way that you do a reboot, even if it doesn't work. Porridge, to me, should have been left where it was. Gold standard comedy. The new one didn't weaken it, thank God. Its legacy. But it's the same thing. If you did another Fawlty Towers, thank God I think that'll never happen, it wouldn't be the right thing in my head to do. So when you see a film series, and you remember I've seen this in Spider-Man where they've rebooted it, I don't think it's correct to do so. Why not just build it around the same infrastructure? Do you know what I mean? Certain things have worked, though. Dune, say. That was a great film. You could have continued it in the same style, but you did a reboot and it's worked. And I can't wait to see part 3. And it takes nothing away from that original, which I count to be as the definitive Dune. I always will. Don't think that'll change, but that's because of nostalgia and the history that I know of that film. If you want to know more about Dune, I highly recommend you go and see Ian Hill, The Ramblings. He talks about it constantly. It's great that he does, because I learned so much more from him. Maybe he'll do a singular episode on Dune, if he hasn't done so already. Now, I've looked at a lot of his back catalogue, but not all of it. It would take me some time for me to do that because of the way my mother is. But wholeheartedly, Ian, if you're watching, your feelings, thoughts, memories of Dune, what you feel about the new one, how you feel about reboots of that particular thing, would make a good episode. Damn right, damn straight. So I hope I've answered it. Sometimes I'm for it. I would say I was more against than I am for, but I do recognise that there have been some cracking ones. Been some real duds. Look at Salem's Lot, for instance, or Running Man. You know, two definite swings of, are you happy that it was rebooted, or are you sad about a reboot? With just those two to talk about. Catch you soon, mate. I'm away from work for a week from Monday. And it's Bank Holiday Monday. And, of course, I'm not at work. So is it my time to call you, or is it your time to call me? Who cares? That'll be happening. So listen out. Yep. Brilliant work. Thank you so much. And please go and support his channel as well. He does a lot of restoration work of covers and, magazines, and loves his text adventures. And he's even done some montages of things on things like Whizball, stuff like that. Absolutely fantastic. What a great guy as well. Plus, go and look at our previous discussions. I miss those. We'll try and do some, but very difficult with his work schedule and when I'm back at work. And of course, everything that's going on in my life, which you're well aware of. So we'll move on and say salute to my friend. And we get to Robert's Retro Gaming, who you know that I'm a big fan of. Talk about him later on, bigging up his channel as I always do, but it's not really bigging it up. I really enjoy it, you know. He's put, "Hi Del, I hope you and your mum have had a good week. Keep up the exercises. You are a trooper." Yeah, that's these exercises listed in here. So yeah, I've been doing those. It's been difficult. Only one day this week I didn't do them. It was the day I had to get the plants, Friday. Otherwise, I did do them. The walking less so. But that was because I was in pain. But anyway, I've had a very busy couple of weeks, Robert continues, with the final session of the 25-26 year of volunteering with a class of school kids who are in grade 2. Now, I'm not sure about the American grading system, so I don't know what year that is, but my guess would be 13, 14. So maybe I'm right with that. Maybe it's a little bit younger, 11 and 12. That's a lot of fun for me. And it's always sad to say goodbye to the kids. There will be a new crop along in the fall to get to know and spend time with. Do you know what? I'd love to do that. Could go to my old primary school, say, and work with kids on some of the technology things that I've done. Really like to participate. It's one thing I like, and I really do like kids. I think they're great, especially at a certain age. Some of them are a bit cheeky, though. I will say that. My wife and I, you continue, had our spring choir concert, which was great fun to sing in. 2 of my adult kids are participating in a 5-kilometre walk run in support of mental health. Last weekend, we were all out of town attending a celebration of life for a woman in her 90s from our extended family. She passed away in the winter. That was very nice, and we got caught up with all sorts of people that we don't see that often, and it went late into the evening. Yes! Isn't it sad, isn't it, that a death occurs, you meet all these people, you go to the funeral, you have your little chats. You all say, "Oh, we'll have to do this. We'll have to meet in the better times." And you find it rare, I think, and I might be wrong in this, but I find it rare that somebody will turn up and say, "Let's go, 6 months since that death, let's go and have a little meet-up, shall we? Celebrate the life of something." Do we do that a lot? No. Isn't that a great thing in your family? Now, you cheered me up a little bit, made my brain go mental when it talked about the choir. I was in the choir. Some people will know that I also stayed behind and did keyboard exercises on the organ that we had in our church. And, you know, I miss those keyboard exercises. They were drummed into me at school. It's one reason why I bought the keyboard by Tyros back there. And I do, on occasion, when I'm under high stress, turn that thing back on and start playing things like Moonlight Sonata by Beethoven, Fur Release, some pop songs. And I watch a lot of YouTube videos that say the 4 chords that makes you being able to play 200 pop songs. And I have two minds about those, because you're not learning music, you're learning patterns. Patterns are good, but really the way that you learn the keyboard is to number your fingers and find middle C and recognize that, you know, 1, 3 and 5 is a chord and so forth. That's my music background, rather than someone coming along and saying, you don't need all of that. Here you are. There's the chord of C. Here's the chord of D. Here's the chord of something minor. Here's this G. That's all you need. Now you can play Hey Jude. And you just see them doing a chord thing, and they're learning nothing about flourishes and how other notes in that octave can be used to go to another octave, or how key changes work, etc., etc. And so I love them and hate them in equal form. But that's you and the choir thing. You continue just to the end. I've only managed to watch and listen to the first half hour or so of your blog in the last few weeks, but I hope to get back to more through listening and watching now. I like having you keep me company when I'm working around the house. I'm so glad about that. I thought I was putting people to sleep, and you put all the best. And that's all I can ever ask for in something that Robert's done here. Talk about how I've done something, how he's talked about things that are going on in his life, and some of those things mirrored mine. About the choir, I didn't really talk about the choir then. Let me talk about that now. Yes, I had to wear the gown. It was a brief moment in time. I was never really given a voice, but I did do solos, if that helps. Yes, before smoking probably destroyed my throat, my range was very good. I used to like singing Elton John songs, and I used to be able to do his early work, and now I find that's out of my range. And there's another reason why you shouldn't smoke. And, you know, I miss those days because I felt part of something, and the choir master would single certain people out because that particular song was geared towards your vocal range. It's amazing. I used to do karaoke, and nobody turned around and said, oh, you did that bad there. In fact, they used to come up to me after I'd sung an Elton John song and say I sang your song, and I'd do it in 2 different ways. And that's because Elton John did a live and he did the original, and towards the end he would change it up, and it's well known. And some people would come and say, I wonder whether you were going to do the newer one or whether you're going to do the older one. And you know, same with, I used to do some Barry Manilow ones. I used to like singing the song Mandy. That's another one that you can do in different ways. Mandy's an interesting song, actually, because it is partly classical. You'd need to do a bit of a Google thing on Mandy just to tell you what I'm talking about, but you'll hear that the intro is bastardized, I suppose is the word, from a classical piece. Beautiful opening though to that song. I'll tell you what it is. It's chord changes. I'm very susceptible. a lot of people try to think, why do I like that particular song? If you were to actually, and I suppose you could use AI in this, write in some of your favourite songs and ask it, what key is this in? What's the pacing? You know, what's the memento? What's the time signature? What, you know, that sort of thing. You may finally discover that it's probably the chord progression that makes you listen to that. I don't know whether that works for metal music, heavy metal, but it certainly works for easy listening and pop. You know, there's lots that I've learnt to play on the piano because of the chord progression. No big jumps. Your hands don't have to move too far. And because of the key it's in, it's got a certain way that it's in. I think ABBA is probably quite unique in the way that they structure their songs. Very clever how they work. But anyway, I've talked way too much about that. I need to say thank you very much to my friend Robert. Move on. And we get to Wee Bob Art. He's put, great to listen along as always. It's Friday when I'm writing this and had a quiet morning, to be fair. I have a holiday coming up, just off work, so probably decorating one of the little rooms, maybe hoping to do a video or a community question and get the art started again at some point. It's been too long. Oh, totally agree. It's been too long, you lazy git. My little joke there. Anyway, question for next time. And I'm just going to stop there before I read it out. Absolutely. Wee Bob, such a nice bloke. The community question. I'm so disappointed that every time he brings it out, I either miss it or I don't have time to give an answer, or I do it in this diary, which is wrong because my friends do it in their own and I don't. And I've got to change that. That's something that I'll put in the back of my head, Bob. So thank you for that. But your question is, what is the most adrenaline-filled activity you have ever done? Is it a roller coaster, helicopter, or aviation, etc.? Wow, I could be here for a while, but I'll try not to be. I've told a story. I wasn't bullied into it, but there was a ride, and it was, and I forgot what it was called. I think it was called the Barrel or something. It was a different form of a ride called the Cage. We're talking about a dome that spins round. The Cage was totally Meccano. You were trapped in, and it span round. And I hated it. Hated the look of it. Didn't want to go on it. Nah, not for me. But the reason I didn't like it is that it was so transparent. You could look through the grid. People could see your back. It was totally open, so the wind would get to you, and you were spinning around fast, which meant that your eyes could focus on something, and it'd probably make you sick. So when this barrel type thing came along, I thought, I'll give it a try. You only live once, don't you? And nobody's come out of here and died that I know of. Don't give you the statistics of that at my hometown fair. So I went on it. And a couple of things I wasn't aware of. One, this thing had everybody just pinned against a wall. So they said stand against the back, ride's about to start. And you're on this plinth floor, actually. When it span round, you could feel that you were stuck against the wall. That's the centrifugal force in action. And what did they do? Drop the floor. And you're pinned like this. And your cheeks are going like this. And a person of my weight at the time would have been rippling like this, right? What you have to remember is that centrifugal force works in a certain way. Somebody was sick when it was slowing down and the floor was rising back up. So the floor always got to your feet before you were going to be unpinned. But this sick happened just at the end, and it splattered across, I think, the 4 people to the left, and it was a girl, it was a lady, and it went over me. And the smell of that made me sick. So I don't know whether the ride made me feel sick or whether the smell and the sick on me from this other person made me feel sick. But I went, that's horrible. But it was an adrenaline ride. And I've had other adrenaline rides where you shouldn't have them. When I went over to the States and I went to Universal Studios and Disney World or Disneyland, Disney World, yeah, Disney World. In both California and Florida, I went to Disney. Never went to Euro Disney. I haven't done that. I went on those rides where they're not virtual reality, but you're in a really close surroundings and a huge screen that covers your virtual plane, your horizon. And the Back to the Future ride was definitely this. You're in a model DeLorean that they lifted up, and it just used pistons to move you around. But there was a huge dome, projection dome above you, and you were in the ride. And those raised my adrenaline for definite. There was one where it was the human body and you had to go into the heart. It was based on Fantastic Journey. That was one. And there was a Star Wars one where you were going on a small transportation ride, but there was a big battle going on next to a Star Destroyer. And you got caught in it. And there was this robot driving this transport of yours. And I think there was a Star Trek one, but I'm not sure of that. If it is, it's either a memory or a dream. So I can't really say. All you have to know about that was I did the Star Trek Adventure, which was a video that they gave you a video of afterwards where you acted on green screen. And I've still got that. And I could convert it and show it. But I've sort of like said that before, not done it. And I call it a fret because you don't want to see my acting. Oh, me as Kirk. Oh, my God. And my girlfriend as the Vulcan. Wow. Happy memories, though. But going back to stuff. Going on my first helicopter lesson was adrenaline filled. Going up in a glider. My first time going on a plane. With your ears popping and all of that sort of stuff. All of that was adrenaline filled. I have swam with dolphins. That wasn't. That was just calming. That was beautiful. Did that at SeaWorld. Yeah. Well, suburb part of SeaWorld. It wasn't SeaWorld. They pull you out the audience. I was never pulled out the audience. But there was, you could put your name down on a thing. And I did. And I did that with my girlfriend as well. Got pictures of that. But adrenaline comes in many forms. Every time I went on stage, every time that I sang by myself, every time is an adrenaline thing. But I think I've mentioned a few there, and I think that's a good answer. So I'm going to move on, and all I'm going to say to you, wee Bob Art, is please keep going. Can't wait for your next episode of Project Zombieland, or I think that's what it's called. You're up to episode 11 as far as I know. Love to see these community questions. Sorry that I've not done them. Kevin down the rabbit hole has answered every single one, I think. What a guy he is. So yeah, thank you very much for your content. And if you haven't guessed already, Wee Bob Art has got a channel. It's got two actually. Wee Bob and Wee Bob Art. Do a Google search of those. Please go and look. At least watch a video. Possibly like it. If you love it, subscribe. He'll appreciate it. So brilliant. Now, I'm getting very uncomfortable, probably because I've been sitting down now for 35 minutes, which just goes to show you how long I can sit for. So it's going to be another small break. Do apologise for that, but I'll be back in seconds for you. Won't be long. So since I left you, a lot's happened. I've had my little sandwich, but my sister said in 10 minutes we need to change mum, so I came back in, watched a video. I watched another one of Robert's, believe it or not. He played a Pico 8 game called Beam, and he asked for help. And I remember playing that 5 months ago, and hopefully I've given him some help. But that's happened, and of course that's it. And come back here, and that's at least 35 minutes of time. So you can sort of like guess where we are. We're in the afternoon now, so we'll move on. And we've gotten, so I'm going to say salute to all the comments that I've read so far, just in case I missed any. And we're on to Ian Hill, the Ramblings, my friend, who big supporter of me. I'm a big supporter of him, and we do a live on Wednesday, if you haven't guessed, and I do recommend that you go and have a look at his channel. But he's put, hi Del Boy, hope you and your mum are okay and your week hasn't had too much drama. On a personal note, I really hope your own health has improved. I saw your discomfort on our Wednesday live stream. I did intend not to keep you up so long, but we do chat for quite a while afterwards. Yes, we do. And of course, we read out all the highs and the lows at the beginning, and that takes some time, and Ian likes to read them all out. So yeah, that does take some time. Something strange happened last night, which, by the way, this was a day ago, so this must be Friday. Something strange happened last night, which has never happened before. A shelf, which has been up for at least 30 years, suddenly fell off the wall. Nothing was on it. It made me jump. Anyway, with a bit of juggling around, I was able to find a new place for everything. Also, there was. Hope this is the last time that happens. I'm so glad that I have the room to be able to use bookcases for my collection of Blu-ray and 4K. Yeah, you never know. You mentioned that there was lots scaffolding and stuff around your house while they were doing something in the street. I remember maybe with unconsciously vibrations went through your house, loosened the screws. I don't know. Could be anything really, like you say. In terms of my health, nothing to report. Everything is the same. At long last, I can now say all the cold from the house has gone. Yes, and I should think it'd be even better now. It's been a heat wave of a sort. In terms of watching films, the highlight was watching a download of Project Hail Mary, the best film of 2026 so far. Another highlight was Amistad, 1997, directed by Steven Spielberg, based on a true story set in 1839, which led to a Supreme Court ruling of the ownership of slaves. Some great performances from Morgan Freeman, Nigel Hawthorne, Matthew McConaughey, and Anthony Hopkins. It was in many ways a prelude to the coming Civil War of 1861 to 1865. I think it's an underrated Spielberg film. Yeah, it's been a long time since I've seen it, and it made us have a little discussion about John Adams, the second president of America, because I remember you saying that John Quincy Adams was in this film, and of course he was the second president. So I'm pretty sure that John Adams, which is a little mini drama which I've got, is mentions about slavery. So my question this week is, what are your favourite Spielberg films? Oh, so many. I mean, I didn't know until much later that I'd seen an episode of Columbo done by Spielberg, but I loved Duel, and I was so excited back in the day when I was talking to a lot of other film collectors how we were so looking forward to Duel coming out. And it was an instant pre-order for me. And then, of course, I've had multiple conversations about Jaws, and I think all the people that I spoke to never had a bad word to say about Jaws. I mean, some people talk about perfection. I don't think Jaws is perfect, but it's damn good. So good. And when you consider that came out, not very far after Jewel, and they'd only done a few TV stuff, including that Columbo episode. That's great. But it went on and on from there. I mean, I loved Close Encounters of the Third Kind. I liked it when he was on the Indiana Jones stuff. I even liked the produced stuff, that he did for Back to the Future. But I've liked an awful lot Empire of the Sun. I'll tell you one that I've never been overawed about, and that's E.T. I just never saw. Sorry, as soon as my mum came out and said that looked like our Mr. Henry with a King Edward spud on top, I turned round and said to my mum, that cost $1 million, to make. She said, should have come to me. Could have done a Blue Peter job on it. As soon as she said that, I sort of never really gelled with it. And maybe it's because, as well, that I did get ultimately to see it at the pictures, but well after. It was like on its way out. And saw a pirate copy in the very early video days that probably marred it a little bit. But saying that, I have bought it on VHS. I've bought it on DVD. I never bought it on Blu-ray, I don't think, but I did get a 4K last year, I'm sure of. And it's been in some of my Spielberg collection box sets. But favourites of mine, I mean, you like I said, there's Jurassic Park, isn't there? We can't let Jurassic Park go, and it's milestone of how things are in movies. Schindler's List is one of those films which is a favourite of mine, but it's one I always say you'll probably watch it once because it's so harrowing. It's such an important tale to tell, but it's such a hard watch because you know what it's about, and the context of it. And, but you have to watch it. It's one of those ones you've got to watch. It's so important. So there are so many, really. Just trying to think. So Jurassic Park, Schindler's List, Empire of the Sun, E.T., Close Encounters of the Third Kind, Jewel, Jaws. My God. The man's just done so many. Yeah, I'm going to leave it there because otherwise I'm going to be here forever. And I've noticed that I'm getting slower and slower as I move along. And I must admit I've had to do some stuff with my mum and that, which has extended this even longer. But you've put all my best wishes to you and your mum, and have a reet grand time. And I'll say salute, my friend, as I always do on our Wednesday stream as well. And I'll see thee again. There you are. Tried to do you, can't. But there we go. Salute, and we move on to my friend Jambon. And he's put, hiya Dell. Hope you've had a good week. Glad to hear your sister is okay and didn't bleed to death. I must admit, she does say about that. Sounds like you two are becoming a well-oiled machine when it comes to looking after your mum, and it's really impressive. On Eurovision, I know it's a bit crap, to put it mildly, but I enjoy it, and we're sad enough to write down our own scores for each country's performance. Yeah, you and your partner. Question, please, if you don't mind, and haven't been asked before. You always do that, and of course you're welcome to. Are there any crappy European one-hit wonder pop songs that you've always liked, even though they're a bit naff? Take care, sir, and all the best to your mum and sister. Wow. If we're talking Eurovision, I've always liked the German entry, Ambition Frieden, which is a little piece, I think in English, which was the German #1 entry that did go around in Britain, but went to #1 in other European countries. And I think what I liked about that was it was slightly orchestra. There was her on the guitar and there was a harp. And I had this phase of loving the harp. Stuff that was in film score music that used a harp, I just sort of went, oh, there's a harp used, oh, and I suddenly then loved the main themes of these films and all sorts of stuff. But it was overused, the harp, I have to say. But I do still love the harp. I think it's a gorgeous instrument. Probably the most cumbersome thing to play, but because it's a huge thing. But yeah, love the harp. Let's see, European. I might be wrong here, but wasn't Lou Bega European? He did Mambo #5, and I remember being in Manchester and my girlfriend loving that song, and she played it in the car. She made me play it in the car as well, a lot. Her name was Mandy, by the way. And yeah, I'm pretty sure that's European. Isn't 99 Red Balloons another German song? Yeah, I'm pretty sure it is. Oh, and I can't forget, this was an earworm. Oh, earworm. Da, da, da. That got in my head. And I thought it was naff, but I quite like it. There's probably a load of others. I've never liked all the Barbie Girl and Saturday Night and all of that sort of stuff. I'm sorry, no. Oh, if those could go into room 101, I'd put them in there. Don't ever want to hear them. Sorry to the people that do like them. Of course, you've got your own opinion and you can set yourself up your own YouTube channel and start talking about them. But from my point of view, no. I love all sorts of music and I can listen to them, but it's just I'd be going, no, I don't want to hear that again for a while, please. You know. So there we go. Simple as that. What a great question. Thank you so much and salute, my friend. And we move to Colin Jones, aka Ponder. Let's see what he's got to say. He's put, there is an arcade drop zone at Arcade Club in Bury. It's a lot easier than the versions I've played on computer. Yeah, but it wasn't about the fact that there's one at Arcade Club. It was the one that I saw at the Zap event, and it was going to be able to be coming out on Steam and that, and I played it, and so I wanted it. I'm intrigued by this arcade version of Drop Zone. Maybe it's just a Commodore 64 or a Atari version that's been put onto converted hardware. I don't know. You haven't got into length about that. I'm pretty sure I have heard about it. And I saw when we were at the Zap event, they had a McLean sort of like glass cabinet with all the different screenshots and the things it's been on, and it might have been that the arcade one was listed there. I'm not sure, you know. Mainmeister was there, he'll tell you. Glad to hear your mum is more settled now and you're getting into a new routine. Hopefully that will help with your own health. Possibly. Glad to hear work is being decent about this too. They are. Sending my regards as always and fingers crossed that the pain goes away soon. Hasn't yet. I wish to take my tablets down, but it's not happening yet. Actors unions are keeping AI away from the cinema for now. Good. Quiet from me this week. Not a lot to add to what was said. No, but I know that you've been very busy on your own channel as well, so it's understandable. And of course, we all have our own lives. So you got a question. Have you ever made a mistake that is easy to recover from, but which needs a tool or something else you don't have, so then have to order the needed equipment? ? question mark. Maybe you can tell why I'm asking this with a little emoji to express that. My God. It's a difficult because there are so many things that I've started a job on and then needed. So does that answer your question? Or there have been jobs that I've started that I knew needed something and I ordered that. Or something that as well that I've ordered because it's quality of life rather than really needed, etc., etc. Because in my technical career, I've been given as well tools like multimeters, which I use. Hasn't really helped much, but I've used them at home. The amount of times I've needed a memory stick, found that all my memory sticks are full, and I've needed it to do a BIOS update or something, and I've ordered that and done stuff. And of course, I've used multiple software tools that I've needed to do stuff. But if I think harder, now here's something that I didn't need a tool for, but I made it, and I could have gotten away with not needing it at all. When I wanted to record a Commodore 64 game because I was a lowly peasant and couldn't buy everything that I wanted, and I was part of a little computer club that me and my friend got together and started a home in a little village where I live. It was in Bloxham. I had two Azimuth tape drives. Sorry, I had two Commodore tape drives, and they had a tape drive as well. So I used to take this. I bought the equipment and soldered up a ribbon cable that went into the tape drive and went out to two tape sort of like ports, and it had a little connector board that basically allowed the tape drive to run two tape drives, and all you had to do was load the game in, and the other tape drive, when it was on record, would record, and it recorded on their own tape drive, which meant that another tool that I bought that you probably really didn't need was my Azimuth tape head alignment kit. So you put one in, press play, you put the other one in, press record, you let it load. Once it had loaded, you stopped and you made a note of the number, and you carried on with a C90 tape and put a couple of games on there, and pound to a penny, it worked. This was better than using a hi-fi stereo unit and switching it to mono and recording and getting the levels right. Now I could have done it that way because I did have a dual tape deck, but I wanted to do it the way that I thought would always work, and for the most part, that little adapter worked. And the Azimuth tape head alignment was. I was doing, I knew lots of people with Commodore 64s, and I bought one and I just did their tape decks. And you could even put the damn thing in your hi-fi, and you could use the Azimuth alignment screw in, and when you hear the high-pitched noise, the higher the pitch, the more that the heads were in alignment, and it made stuff like my sister's Amstrad hi-fi unit work better. So it became a thing that I did, and I was the technical person in the house and to my friends, and I wasn't looked upon as a god, but I certainly felt better because I was helping them out. Do you see what I mean? I never charged for it. I just did it and went, it'll take me seconds. Yeah, look, done. Go away, bugger off. Your 64 tape will load now. That sort of thing. But I suppose the thing that I bought as a tool for something else that then became multi-use was my Dremel. Used it to actually cut something, and then it ended up being something that I could use for polishing and all sorts of stuff. Even the other day, I could have cleaned our teaspoons, right, with some acid, right, or some caustic soda with white vinegar. And I even thought, I can get the Dremel out, polish it, buff them up. My sister said you don't need to go to that expense, and I mean, you could use Brillo pads, and that's eventually what I did. But my mind went Dremel, and it just turned into something that I constantly use, and I use it constantly now. It's been absolutely fantastic. I think the one I bought was a Dremel 3000, and of course I've bought no end of little grinding stones, cutting things. But there have been no end of jobs. The fence job that I still haven't done requires chisels. So I dug down, saw there was a concrete base. I need chisels to chew it up. When I've done that, I've got to mix concrete. All these things, there's stuff that I'll wait until the summer. And hopefully I don't go past the point where I'm at autumn and winter again and it's still the same. So there you go. Well, I hope that's answered part of your question. Some of those were probably more quality of life answers than proper answers, and I might have even have got the gist of what you're saying wrong. So I apologise for that. Don't penalise me like mad, will you? My brain's just mush at the moment. And Salute, and if you haven't guessed already, he's got his own channel. Oh my God, he's got 2 of them. And he even does a Sid music show on a Sunday, which I try to listen to whenever I can. If I'm in the garden or whatever it is, I listened to that in the summer. I did it that way, and I'll try and do the same again with the plants that I bought this week. So I'll probably be listening this Sunday if this doesn't go on too long. And the last one is Martroid. And what a good friend he is. He's put G'day again, Del. Looks like my comment from last week must have gotten removed. So here it is again. Or a close approximation at least with your mentioning the original Amiga. I've been drifting back to 1985, 86, a time when it was generally felt like we were stepping into the future. Providing the future had enough floppy disks and didn't mind the occasional guru meditation error. Yeah, I do understand that. Do you think anything today captures the same creative chaos the Amiga had? Ooh. Not really. The idea that you could make a machine that had a firmware that you could just put a floppy disk in and then load the operating system. But if you didn't want the operating system, you could just load the game, has gone way past those old DOS days and Amiga days. I mean, even utilising the RAM that Kickstart would use, that would give you nearly the 1 meg that you needed on a game. I'm talking Dragon's Lair here on the Amiga. Is those chaotic times where you fought outside the box. And these days, yeah, we do BIOS flashing. But everything now is download off the internet, plug it in, hit the update, bang, whiz bang bomb, done. When it comes to that, TVs and consoles and even my amp have all got the flash it, needs updating part to it. Creative chaos though. I do like software that basically allows you to use your imagination more. The one thing I haven't done is look for ray tracing software or Mandrabolt software for my PC. It was something I did on the Amiga, and when I moved to the PC, I had so much that I needed to learn that I quickly moved away from those things. And the only thing that became a norm was looking at Adobe stuff and doing stuff on Photoshop and Illustrator. Nothing came close to me looking for ray tracing software, and I wonder these days whether that sort of software is even used, because I take it 3D Studio does that, or ray tracing is just not a thing anymore. I don't know on that. It must be, but it's just that you can do things now so on the fly quickly that you don't do it. You see what I mean? It's part of a bigger piece of software, and I haven't got that sort of money. so I don't even look. But there were so many free ray tracing software and Mandrabolt software that was even in public domain on the Amiga that I could do this on expensive software and I could do it on public domain software. So maybe it's something I ought to look at public domain on the PC a bit closer again. It's been a while. But I used to love the public domain side because I was a teenager with no money. So, of course, it was a no-brainer. Spend a tenner, get 6 public domain discs or whatever. You know what I mean? Buy 5, get 1 free type thing. Because they were about £2, price of a disc and a bit more maybe. So, yeah, bought quite a lot of public domain in my time, plus cover discs of magazines. Creative chaos. So that's my creative side talked about there. I suppose I used to download a lot of music software. Again, I did actually more music software on the PC, believe it or not, because of hooking up the keyboard. Plus, when I was dealing with Chris at C64 Audio, he'd give you the MIDI files. So, of course, I bought things like Music Studio and listened to the Commodore 64 music using my AWE 64 Gold sound card or my Orchid Soundwave 32. Amazing how I remember the names of those cards. And listen to the Commodore 64 with sound fonts. So they sounded absolutely gorgeous. So there you go with that. And yeah, I think that covers my creative bit. I've lost the mouse for some reason, so I'm just switching the mouse on and off. There we go. And yeah, I think that covers that. Now, I'm missing a comment, and I don't know why it's not there because it was from, I think, Sandy Oliver. So I'm going to give her an honourable mention because she started mentioning about, and I remember, this is why I remember it. I mispronounced Skyrim or whatever I called it, and she said she wondered what the hell I was talking about, what game, until she understood. And I thought that was so funny, but it's not here, and I know that was there, and I've just looked and it's not hidden, so it must have been removed by YouTube. I don't understand anything other than that. I'm just checking now, and it's not here. So thanks to her, salute to her, thank you so much. I'm sorry I can't read it out, but it's not here. So wonder if it might have been because of the technical difficulties I had with loading my blog up last Sunday. It could be that. So apologies, that could have been the fact that I had to re-upload. I had no end of technical difficulties last Sunday. It was terrible. But it finally cooled down, so it stayed up. And that's the end of the comments. Thank you so much for that. And that means that we get to the end, really, which is the bits which I've watched. And we do it in 3 sections, and the first one is watched on YouTube, and I'll go through these very quickly. There are the 4 standard ones: This Week in Retro, Techmo, Gadget Show, and Chronologically Gaming. Usually I watched 2 of those on a Saturday at 10 o'clock. They come out at the same time. This Week in Retro had 3 subjects, as always, plus the community question. They were small solutions to big tech problems, from Beatles to bees, and Look Mum 1 point. So, of course, you can imagine that covered the Eurovision. That was great. I had a great time watching that. Fantastic. And if you haven't watched that, please go and have a little look, because the Retro Cave, which is This Week in Retro, is a damn good show. You got Tecmo next, and he did the, I don't even know how to pronounce this company, Exgimi Titan Noir Max, and it's called Finds Itself in an Awkward Position. That's a play on words because it's an actual review of a projector, which is at half price at the moment because it's a Kickstarter. And they sent him a review copy, and he reviewed it. Why not? Absolutely marvellous. Somebody said something to me, I'd review it. There you are. But that was an interesting 40 minutes, and I learned an awful lot about laser projectors. The next one is the Gadget Show, that did 2 videos that I could see, the AI face-off and the why 3D TV completely failed, which I've talked about before, so that must be a re-upload, you know, because I didn't like the fact that they said completely failed, where it hasn't, really. And it wasn't a failure either, because millions and millions and millions of 3D TVs were bought, and millions of 3D Blu-rays were bought. So how can it be a failure? Just because it's not around now just means that its popularity has gone and they've moved technology in a different direction. But it'll probably turn up again. I watch my 3D stuff now through VR. And Techmoan mentioned it himself. You can watch it on the projector. See? No screen to worry about. So, yeah. Don't think 3D TV completely failed at all. But anyway, said all my point about that before last time. Chronologically Gaming is still doing December 1982, but he did do a review in this particular hour-long episode of Arcade Zookeeper, which I've played, as has my friend Steve. I've seen him do it on his channel. That Steve Still Plays Games. And Robert's Retro Gaming, I'm pretty sure he's played it on his as well. So that's great. Now, what other stuff past the 4? You've got the Modern Martial Artist, and there isn't one particular video here. It's all various documentaries and talks on Muhammad Ali and his fights, and those fights were mostly against Joe Frazier, George Foreman, and Ken Norton, with a little bit of Larry Holmes thrown in. So I really enjoyed myself looking at those days and reminiscing about me and my dad. Then there is a channel called Paper and Light that posed the question, why this Star Trek movie poster is secretly backwards. Yeah, if I remember rightly, he was talking about how monetary-wise Star Wars was done around the time of the contract signing for Star Trek. That's it. It's about Star Trek. Yeah. And the poster for it is an enigma, because apparently, and this is a story, William Shatner demanded it be sent back and redone. And it's because on whether his face appeared on the left-hand side or the right-hand side of the poster. I believe it's just a story, to be quite honest. But I might be wrong. There you go. Then we move on and we go to Millennium Valley Productions, who did a video called Spider-Man Night Shift, a fan film. That was quite good. Enjoyed that. Anything to do with Spider-Man I liked, and it was great to see a fan film, and it was technically brilliant. I don't know why he's not at film school. The next one was called Pricer Art, and that was the computer that was too advanced for its own good. And if you haven't guessed already, you know what that will be, being the Amiga. So that was an interesting documentary. We move on to Joe Blow Origins, who did Why the Rocketeer Failed to Take Off. So yeah, this is all about how Disney made a film called Rocketeer, based around a cartoon that most think is based around a film and a serial feature of the 1930s. But the director, who's still alive, mentions nothing to do with it. This film failed because of Disney, wholeheartedly. Never marketed very well. The soundtrack alone is worth getting. It's a lovely film. One of my favourites. So that's not good. Didn't like that one bit. Then we've got A Clockwork Orange Gambit, who did a video called This New Bowling Game Makes Modern Sorry, this new boxing game makes modern boxing games look bad. Yes, that's because there is a new boxing game that's coming out on the 25th, so that's tomorrow. It's a 2D boxing game. It looks very much like Barry McGuigan, but when you're playing it, you're so into it that you forget about what the graphics are. I'm very interested in that game. And then the last one is Back to 8-Bit with Hemsky. And it's sort of one of those live broadcast type videos that is called Various Zap 2026 Event Videos, the talks. Now that's because when I watched it, I wasn't interested in all of the here is a walk around of the Zap event. I wanted to listen to the talks because that's what I would have been doing if I'd have been there. So that was good. Enjoyed that, and that covers what I watched on YouTube. And we'll move into film, TV, and soundtrack very, very shortly after this quick break. Because I just need to check on something. Got my water now, so moving on to the end now. We're moving on to the film, TV and soundtrack YouTube. And we start off with Ian Hill, The Ramblings, my friend who I talked about earlier. He's moving on. Look, he's done his My Top 5 Westerns 2021 to 2025 and started off a new one, My Top 5 Action Adventure, starting at 1931 to 1933. So that's going to be great to continue to watch. He did his Doctor Who review of the Moon Base, got many memories of the Patrick Troughton story, The Moon Base, so that was a definite joy to watch. X-Files review season 6 episode 12, What I Watched episode 19, and Live with Me number 107, I think it was, or 108. No, 107. It's so difficult now. We're in the hundreds. We're established on Wednesday. We'd love to have more people join us, but we're happy to continue because we're just chatting like as if we're in a pub. And that's the joy of Ian, because I just feel like we're so close. It's like getting together to have a pint and talk about, films and TV or anything. Rice pudding we've talked about anything really, and it was great to be there last Wednesday, and we talked for far too long and I had to get up and move around a bit because my leg was gamming up, and it was just great really, just a fun evening. Split my week up a lot, so that was great. Definitely a channel you ought to go and have a little look now and watch a few videos and maybe provide a like or two. Subscribe if you can. Movie Collector. He did an Insomnia 4K Second Sight review. Always great to watch Movie Collector. Have great times there. Just Joshings, who used to be Through the Lens, did What Blu-ray Did I Get? So he did a mystery. What Blu-ray did I get? And he did a When the Director is a Film Bro. And it was the film Obsession. That was interesting. Those were both film shorts rather than actual videos of a long length. So they're very good if you just want something quick to watch under 2 minutes. Mondo Chelovic Movies did a couple of videos I watched this week. Vinegar Syndrome, April 26 titles that he'd picked up because he's part of the subscription scheme. I don't know if he's renewed. I think he enjoyed it so much he has. And Horror Gifts from David Barnes, which was nice. It's always nice to get something in the post and you open it up in front of people. Always found that great. I used to send off some stuff to my friends to do that with. Most of it was actually doubles. But sometimes I bought something, I thought that they deserved it. Why not? If you had the money, do so. Don't have that anymore. So there you go. But we're moving on. We get to Jim Jam Movies and TV. He did a review of Jamie Powell's new movie, and that rolls nicely into Jamie Powell that I watched this week, where I watched his Star Wars Precious Bounty, a fan film. So there you are, two people that I know and one person doing a review of a film that other person that I know has done. Brilliant, absolutely fantastic. In my head, by the way, that worked. I'm not sure. Then while I was on Wednesday, people were telling me of this person called Roy. And he's got a website, a YouTube channel called Blue Roy Movies. See what he did there? Blue Roy. Anyway, he does some weekly watches and some other videos. I've only just started watching. I've been watching some weekly watches this week, and I've thoroughly enjoyed myself. And no sort of holds barred, straight to the point type of review person. So that's quite good, you know. I like, say, one film, I like Batteries Not Included. To him, he didn't. And he explained why, and he explained about the film and who directed it and all that sort of stuff. So all of that is there. But he'll also talk about reasons he doesn't like things or reasons he does. It's quite good. And then to finish off the film bit, we got Commode and Mayo's take. Reviews of Passenger, Finding Emily, Tom and Jerry, Forbidden Compass, and Star Wars Mandalorian and Grogu. Which I haven't heard good things about the Star Wars one, I have to say, but I'm not the target child audience to watch that. But I do believe there'll be adult things for the adults to watch when they take their kids to the cinema. So there must be something in there, and of course, not many good things have I heard. Maybe I'm wrong. I need to see it, so I need to get my ass to the cinema. Moving on now to the last section, gaming and tech YouTube. We've got my friend who I mentioned earlier, Down the Rabbit Hole, Kev. So he did Super Football on the Atari 2600, and he did my Starbuck figure from Majestic Studios. Yeah, he's got a couple of these Battlestar Galactica figures. He's not scared or shy to show those off, even though they're action figures and some people might say toys. But he never gets a bad word about his hobbies that I know of, and whether they're childish or not. But I certainly get a lot of interest out of them because I've got some little figurines and I've got my main statues and all of that sort of stuff. And I've done a couple of videos on those, and I ought to do some more, but it's space now. I used to do that in my second living room, but it's now being used. So can't really do stuff in there. Then we got Robert's Retro Gaming, who I talked about earlier and who left a comment. My God, this is what he's done this week. And I mean, my God, if you're not subscribed to him, I don't know why you're not, because he does something every day. Listen to this. Dwarf Fortress Classic episode 39, Minecraft Play episode 194. And again, I'm still intrigued on what he might do for his 200th episode. Pico Out Gameplay, Pogo Duke, and as you know, I've now watched one called Beam, but I hadn't got that written down because I hadn't watched it yet, but I have now. C64 Gameplay, Warriors of Zayar, SNES Gameplay of Wheel of Fortune, which I've never been a fan of Wheel of Fortunes, but I watched it. But it's not one that I got great enjoyment out of, but it was still fun to watch Robert on it. Atari 8-bit Gameplay, he did SS Achilles, Cuthbert Goes Walkabout, and Frax Lair. And Frax Lair just happens to be one I suggested, but it was suggested because I always like to look out for my friends in their videos that they're doing. And Chronologically Gaming last week did an Atari 8-bit show of Frax Lair. And it looked like River Raid, and I remember Robert and I both liking River Raid. And I thought to myself, do you know what? I'll mention that to Rob just in case he doesn't watch that channel. And he did a video of it on Friday. Absolutely fantastic. Loved it. Fantastic, Robert. Thanks for doing that. It wasn't from me in particular. It came from Chronologically Gaming, matey, of which he's done now 670 plus Atari games. So he must be nearly up with what you've done. And that's my little joke there. But we're moving on, and salute to you, my friend, and to Down the Rabbit Hole. We get to Steve Still Plays Games, and my God, he's done some stuff this week as well. Commodore 64 gameplay of Forbidden Fruit, BBC gameplay of Wiz's Mansion, Steam gameplay of Adventures of Sir Kick-a-Lot, which I saw through Worth a Buy, and never downloaded the demo, but it seemed interesting. and Twitch replay of Dark Souls Part 21. The Essies continue to play Dark Souls, which my hat goes off to you, sir, and I, pluck my tip or whatever they used to call it on you, because that game's rock hard. I played it a very little while on my Xbox years back. Then we get to 20th Century Gaming and watched a number of his. He did Salute, by the way, to Steve. He did Wheelie and some alternative music to it. Lai with some alternative music to it. A Spectrum long play of Resistance. Midnight Resistance, that is, I should say. And he did a live Saturday stream very shortly because he went off to see his friend's stream called Ray, but didn't tell me which Ray. So I didn't know where he went. And nothing came up in my alert. So I don't know what Ray he went to see. I don't know if it was Ray C. Could have been. But he didn't mention. So I wasn't sure. So I was left high and dry a little bit. But I had a great time watching him play Batman on the Spectrum. So that was great from what I saw. Then salute to my friend Mark, 20th Century Gaming. And then I saw Wee Bob. He did Project Zomboid episode 11. I was right with that. Mentioned him earlier on, so go and watch that. That was very good. Colin Jones, aka Ponder, did do his Vblog, so I was right with my prediction. It was that following Monday. It was blog number 104. He did a Tubers High Score challenge of Biomechanical Toy, and he did a Mainmeister High Score kerfuffle of Frontline. All of those thoroughly entertained with, definitely brilliant. And then we've got LFC Gamer and Vlogs, who also did a vlog on the 22nd of the 5th, which was very entertaining and talked a little bit about football as well. And Mainmeister, who did a video of 8 and 16-bit kerfuffle of a game called Exelon, which I played back in the day. And that's the end of the written report. So we've done that. And we move on to what's arrived in the post. And I might be duplicating myself here, so apologise if I have. There's my overhead cam. This came through. It was a steelbook of Fight Club, because I don't think I've got the Fight Club on a steelbook in 4K in my collection. Not sure, but I'll put that into video there for you. Very nice. Liked that when it came through. Then a film that's had mixed reviews, The Bride. I know that Josh didn't like that one, of Just Joshing, and many others, I believe. It's a steel book. It goes in my horror collection. I remember the 80s version of that. This was bought through Music Magpie, I think, several months ago, but I never showed it. It was William Tell. I bought it because it says a rousing old school Hollywood epic. It really is done epically. The visuals are really, really nice. I wouldn't say it's a fantastic film, but I got great enjoyment of it. I believe you can get it quite cheap these days. It's definitely still on streaming, but I got this, I think, for $4.99. But if somebody in the Wednesday live said it's $9.99 on Amazon at the moment, which is still quite cheap. And then the last thing that came through was this. I think it's been on back order for a long time. It's Welcome to Derry. It's a HBO, you can see there from the top little picture, series, which I recorded but never actually got round to watching. I'll watch it now on the physical media rather than anything else. And I put the back there on you for you. It came in a nice Warner Brother box. And that's your lot. So I'll go back to the normal camera and wind this up. I've had immense time talking. Thanks very much. A lot of new memories and old memories have come flooding back, so some new modern memories and some ones that go back to my childhood from the questions and comments, and just fun to break up my Sunday doing this. Really loved it. It's a lovely hot day. It's a bank holiday weekend for us in Britain. So I just want to say I hope you have a great time. Please get some sun. go out into nature, watch a little bit about the world going by, and have fun on your computers, consoles, watching films, watching TV, and doing your hobbies. We all need these breaks. We need to relax. I swear that my heart attack came because of a number of things that were going on in my life at the time and stress. You need to de-stress. So with that, salute. Thanks very much. Till next week. Bye-bye.